At St. Louis Acura, our customer-focused approach keeps earning us more inventory. As others increase their fees and take advantage of limited inventory, we keep our prices low because we remain committed to becoming better than ever and treating you as we want to be treated. We want you coming back and sending your friends and family to a veteran-owned, family-based business you can trust. Blessings for a wonderful holiday season and a prosperous new year from our families to yours. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
Welcome back into Weekend Joe, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura, Munganass Alton Toyota here on ClaibsOnline.com. The NCAA championship football game was just Monday night and saw Georgia knock off Alabama, and wanted to bring on former intern extraordinaire who was there covering it for the Indianapolis Star. He is Brian Haenchen, and he joins us now. What's going on, man? How are you?
Not much, buddy. I'm good. I've missed you. It's been a while.
It really has, and I'm so excited to see you out there in Indy now, thriving and doing that after everything that you did up in South Dakota for so many years. It's been well over 5 years, I think, since we've seen each other in person.
I think so. I think the last time might have been that trip that we took together to Mizzou when they played Western Illinois. Way back when. I can't remember if that was post my internship.
God, we don't have to bring that up and talk about that, that game.
We've both come a long way, though, from the closet days, if I could say that.
Oh, the old Team 1380, just stuck us in there and made it work and closed the door. So when we got too loud, fun times. So I had people text me when they saw the pictures delivered to the press box last night. So I told them I would start off by asking, how was the shrimp that they brought to you in the press box?
They were some hearty shrimp, and let me tell you, the sauce is really good, and you should get a lot of it on your first bite of the shrimp. When you first experience the sauce, just really pile it on there and get the full effect of it, and then it's wonderful. But I'm still, my sinuses are still just air clean because I think that knocked me on my butt real fast, and the native Hoosiers next to me thought it was hilarious.
That's the St. Elmo's, right?
Yep. It was worth the hype, though. It was definitely worth the hype. It was very good.
Have you not had it yet since you've been there since what, about July, August?
Yeah, mid-July. But no, I never really thought to go to St. Elmo's. I'm not, I'm a man of simple taste and simple pleasures, Joe. Give me a Bud Light and a burger and I'm good to go. But
get Greg Doyle to take you out to lunch and pick up the bill for St. Elmo's sometime. He should have done that when he welcomed you in there.
I've been working on him on it. We've gotten lunch together a few times in group settings, but I'm working on Greg.
So what? Before we get into the game and everything you saw, like, what was the access like there? I know that they kind of set some precedents leading up to that. What were you allowed to do? Where were you allowed to go as a member of the media?
So on game day, which is when I did most of my coverage, you could just go around the concourse. But for me, being in the press box, we weren't allowed field access. But photographers, videographers, the TV people, they were all out on the field. But I mostly hung up in the press box. And then before the game, I wanted the concourse, kind of took in the sights and sounds, caught up with some friends who worked on the TV side that I hadn't seen in a while that were in town for the game. But yeah, otherwise, press conferences and stuff were virtual, which was interesting because the Big Ten championship, everything was in person, and it was about as close to normal as you could get, minus not having locker room access. So that was a big change. But other than that, it felt fairly normal as sporting events go. If that's what you were getting at, press box was packed. The stadium obviously was filled to the rafters. And just some people were wearing masks. Everybody in the press box was masked up, and then down on the field in the stadium, there were a handful of fans, I think, wearing masks. But for the most part, it felt like a normal sporting event, which was nice.
It's just been so weird going through this past year, getting back to having packed stadiums and seeing that. And then when you add in these big events, such as that, I don't remember hearing what it was like last year. I don't even remember what the capacity was for the championship game last year, but the Big Ten championship game, as you mentioned, that was also in Lucas Oil. So in both of those events, I mean, you're 70,000 people plus in the stadium for that. but I know some of the big rules changed as far as the access went. So the press conference, though, there was nobody there in the room, because I've seen the video of Saban with the players. There was no press in that room.
Not as far as I know. Everybody was up in the press box just doing it on their computers, on their phones over Zoom. And before we even got there, too, we had to submit confirmation that we've been vaccinated. You downloaded an app, uploaded your card, and got all that confirmed. So they made sure you were vaccinated. So they took steps too to make sure everybody was safe. But I thought that the press conference thing was interesting, and there had been no announcements leading up to it that that's the way it was going to be. It was just sort of, I think it might have been a day or two beforehand. They sent out an email that just said, "Hey, virtual press conferences." It didn't even say no in person. It just said we're doing virtual. Here's how it's going to be. And usually with these things, in my experiences so far, obviously limited, it's been, okay, no in-person stuff this year. It's all virtual. And they went straight to the virtual.
Was the press box pretty filled? Were there auxiliary press boxes available too?
Oh yeah. The main press box, both sides of it were filled with spots reserved. I know on my side of it, we were around midfield on the left side, the Alabama end zone. It was filled in. All the seats were filled, aside from a few people who didn't show up, and then 3 that were saved off in memoriam. And then the other side was the same thing with national riders. And then there were auxiliary press boxes, obviously, up in the rafters, but it didn't look like it was quite as filled. There were a lot of empty slots up there for people. But yeah, in terms of covering an event with a bunch of people, it felt very normal. Like it felt like this is what it feels like normally to cover a big event such as this with so many people all there from all around the country.
Have you had a chance to go to any Colts games yet this year?
I did. I covered a Colts LA Rams game. I think it was week 2 or week 3, actually.
So what were there differences that you saw compared to, okay, because that's, the NFL or the Colts running that compared to the Big Ten running their game, to the NCAA or the college football playoff game that you saw yesterday? Were there vast differences being in the same venue?
A little bit. The Big Ten was a little more relaxed. With the college football playoff, they really ramp it up like it's an event for the media too. Like they take care of you with stuff leading up to the game, obviously with media events, and you've covered Super Bowls and been there for all the pomp and circumstance leading up to that. So they have things like that and media welcome parties and all that sort of thing. And then during the game too, the quality of food is a lot better. I know that's important to all of us as journalists and all that is the quality of the food. So I think they had steak was one of the treats last night, which was delicious. Yep. Obviously the shrimp halftime for the Big Ten championship, I think it was like chips and mixed nut maybe. So kind of down back. And then I'm not sure about the Colts, but they had sandwiches afterwards, which was delightful. But in terms of restrictions, actually, the Colts and the Big Ten were both open. Like the Colts was open press conferences too, where you just, in normal in-person stuff, they tried everybody out. Big Ten, same thing. But last night, again, it kind of caught me off guard. That was all virtual. And then obviously just the number of people and the expanse of the media outlets they're represented is a lot different when it's a national championship game versus a regular season football game or even just a conference championship game.
You have you've been to your fair share of SEC games, being a Mizzou grad and going to games there at Faurot Field. Did you ever travel and go to any road Mizzou football games during your time there?
I did not. I've been to, I think the only road college football game that I've been to outside of Mizzou would probably be, I've been to North Dakota State, which is an event at the FCS level. And then I've been to Oklahoma when they played South Dakota a few years ago. So I've seen it in Norman. So I've seen the Big 12 and then the best of the best, the Missouri Valley, but I haven't seen an SEC. But I've heard obviously everything about it from when Mizzou first made the jump and ever since, and just how big of a spectacle it is. And honestly, that was kind of a bummer with it being in Indianapolis. I know that a lot's been made of it being cold up here and people complaining and whining about that. And one thing that does kind of stink is that you don't get as much of the tailgating stuff with it, I guess. And there's, it's a lot more just get to the stadium and get out of the cold type of thing. And afterwards last night, we walked out about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And there weren't a lot of people out in the streets partying still. I think everybody was back in their hotels, back at the bars or whatever, just trying to stay warm and enjoy themselves before flying out this morning.
So to be in that venue last night and to see Alabama versus Georgia, two teams that already don't like each other, that have already played each other once this year, playing for the biggest title in college football, what was that entire experience like being in the stadium to see that?
Oh my God, it was so loud. Like it was really cool. I was down in the concourse about, I don't know, hour and a half, hour before kickoff, and it just sea of red, just packs and swarms of people, and it's buzzing Tim Tebow and the SEC Nation crew were set up on one side. They had College Game Day on the other side on the same end of the stadium behind Alabama's end zone. People stopping to take pictures, ushers having to move them along to keep traffic moving because so many people were just stopping to take pictures. And then during the game, I mean, the atmosphere was unreal. It was a very heavy Georgia crowd. I think they outnumbered the Bama fans pretty significantly, it seemed like. And it was noticeable from the beginning of the game, just with the UGA chants and the red towels waving versus the red and white pom-poms. But it was loud. Even early in the game when it was kind of slow and there weren't many touchdowns being scored, it was loud. They were getting loud for the defenses, and it was a closed press box, but there were times you could feel it shaking a little bit, and that sound was coming in really, really strong through the plexiglass. And I would have loved to have heard it, what it was like being open air in that situation, because, man, it was rocking through most of that game. It was awesome.
I got to imagine that the Alabama fans didn't show up because it was in Indianapolis. I saw some reporter tweet that they were leaving the venue last night and they were standing around two Alabama fans, and the Alabama fan one turned to the other and was like, "Where's the game next year?" And the guy was like, "LA." And they were like, "Oh, okay, that'll be fun." Like they're already planning. Like it's just like, "Oh, okay, well, we lost this one, but I wonder who will be playing next year." And just to have that level of confidence that you can look at, and it's very similar, as you mentioned, the Super Bowls. It seems like it was like that with Patriot fans. That Patriot fans just got used to being there every year, to where when it wasn't in that great of a city, when it wasn't in that great of a venue, you would see more and more of the other team there, because it was like, oh, the Patriot fan, they didn't want. And I'm trying to think who was in the Minnesota Super Bowl? Who would have been in that? If that would have been New England, I'm sure it was, because it feels like everyone was. That was Philadelphia, and either Philadelphia or Atlanta versus New England in that one. And it's like you didn't see that many New England fans there because it was like, it's cold. We'll go next year. It's somewhere. It's Atlanta next year. We'll go to that one. And I feel like that's kind of the mindset of the Alabama fan at this point.
And what's crazy is that it's not misguided. Like, they're not wrong. Like, they're probably going to be back in the game next year, and it's fine. Like, yeah, save your money and go to LA next year, because they're probably going to be there. It's unreal, but that is interesting. And I would be interested if there were ever like tangible data on like people who skipped the trip because it was in Indianapolis. But honestly, Indy rolls out the red carpet for this stuff. They know how to do these big events right. People, again, can complain about the weather, and I think Doyle wrote about this, but there are some legitimate gripes with how the hotels were gouging people. But they shut down a lot of main drags in the city. The Monument Circle, which is sort of like the hub of downtown, they blow that up and make it a huge thing for fans, like a big gathering space. The walkway to the convention center, which has a tunnel to the stadium, that's all college football playoff, like entertainment things. They had concerts, they had everything. It was a really cool event the way they did it. They were planning to have a laser light show on a couple nights, but they both got canceled one night because of sleet, which was a little less than ideal, obviously. But other than that, I think that Indianapolis showed out well for an event like this. It just, again, the weather is what it is, but they're playing the game inside a closed stadium, and there's places for fans to go. There's plenty of bars, plenty of things to do indoors to get them out of the cold and have a good time, regardless of what it's like outside.
And yeah, it's going to catch a bad rap because, events like the Super Bowl and the college basketball or the college football championship are in cold weather months in the Midwest. So it's not going to be, you are hit and miss with the weather, but that city really is set up to host stuff like that, with the fact that you don't have to walk outside if you don't want to walk outside. If you have stuff that you want to go to, they have the skywalks there that you can travel around, and you can go from one thing to the next. And they've done a really good job of making that city big event friendly for stuff like that. So it is pretty cool to see that. Hopefully, I mean, they should be in more of a rotation, I think, for college basketball for something like that,
Sure.
With when it, could be a little warmer, a little nicer to get around.
For sure. And Kyle Neddenriep, who I was covering the game with last night, he brought up the fact that when the Super Bowl was in Indianapolis, they kind of lucked out because the weather was really nice that week and it was unseasonably warm. I don't know if you remember that, but it was.
Oh, I
nice.
do. Yeah, it was really. Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, it was nice there, similar to where it was like 40s all week long, and people are like, God, this couldn't have been nicer. And then on the other side, when it was in New York a few years later, it was nice all week until the night of the game where it just was terrible and people couldn't get out the day after.
Yeah, I remember that's what I was thinking of throughout last night was just how bad the Super Bowl was in New York in comparison to this, or at least the weather was just only bad for one night. And again, I think that the closed stadium kind of factors in there too. But no, overall, it felt like a very successful weekend for Indianapolis. And like you said, I feel like basketball with how they hosted the NCAA tournament last year is going to become more of a thing here with the NCAA tournament. And two, I mean, I don't see any reason why college football shouldn't come back here again for an event sort of like that.
So takeaways from the actual gameplay that you saw yesterday with Georgia getting the win and redeeming themselves from their SEC championship loss.
That Georgia defense, man, holy smokes, they are fast. Like, my God, like I'm not a fan of defensive football, and usually games that only have field goals are boring to me. But that game was not boring, even at the beginning. I mean, there were some big flashy plays. Big pass completions that both teams made, and the other one just stepped up on defense. And on Georgia's side, the pressure that they were getting on the quarterback and their ability to fly around and the speed with which they played is unreal. And then on the offensive side, some of their skill players they're unbelievable with some of the catches that they make. And for Alabama, what was it? It was like their second drive of the game when the receiver from St. Louis went down with a knee injury. That was heartbreaking to see. And you could tell in the moment that it was bad. Like as soon as he went down, it looked bad. And we kind of all gasped in the press box. But I don't think you could have asked for much of a better finish to that game. That felt like what everybody was waiting for. And it finally came with just them going blow for blow. And what better way for Georgia to clinch that championship than with the pick six? I think it was the longest in championship history. What was it, 75 yards or whatever it was for the game clinching score. So just a great finish. And honestly, it felt like Georgia had stolen momentum when they had the drop pass Bama did. Then Georgia blocked the field goal and went down and scored. And then Alabama was the beneficiary of that passing completion. It looked like a passing completion, but they called it a fumble recovery. I didn't understand that call. I still don't understand that call, but that's when it felt like, okay, here comes Bama. They're going to do something stupid and win this game at the end. But credit to Georgia. They didn't let them.
Yeah, the confusing part about that was that they called it a fumble, but I thought I heard the officials say it's either a fumble on Alabama's ball or it's going to be intentional grounding.
I should shout out that referee. By the way, he did a great job explaining everything. He had that one. He literally broke down the pass intentional grounding rule on the microphone in the entire stadium. It was wonderful.
Yeah, from the beginning, the second drive of the game, or Georgia's first drive of the game, where the Alabama player got penalized for clapping for the false start. Like whatever it's called in the rule book, and whatever he said what it was, and it was like, okay, I don't know what those words mean, but then he went on to even say, okay, it was for the clapping, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently that was a thing in the SEC championship game too. Some of the writers from Atlanta were talking about that. I think that Alabama was maybe doing some of the same things when they played at the Georgia Dome or for the SEC championship, and it went uncalled. So this time they snuffed it out right at the beginning. And two, I mean, the third play of the game when Georgia had a touchdown overturned because it was ruled an incomplete pass. There were some interesting calls during that game. I think they got that one right. The second review that was overturned, I think it was a little more murky. But I think in the end, fortunately, it didn't really matter much on the outcome of the game with the way Georgia finished it. But there was some potential for some controversy and some drama there.
Brian, before we wrap this up and let you go, did anybody take the shrimp in the press box last night and microwave it?
No, I thought about it. I went looking for a microwave, but I couldn't find one. I searched high, I searched low, but I could not find the microwave. I was really disappointed because I wanted to do it for my guy Iggs.
I can't believe because I'm pretty sure there's a microwave in the Dome's press box still. I'm pretty sure that there was a microwave in there when I was covering Battlehawks games 2 years ago. That I'm surprised that Lucas Oil doesn't have the technology of a microwave somewhere in theirs.
Maybe they do. Maybe they just keep it hidden for clowns like me who wanted to go microwave their shrimp. Wouldn't that have been something? Look at this clown putting his shrimp in the microwave, sticking up the press box, ruining this gourmet shrimp, these huge shrimp, big as your fist, and he's sticking them in the microwave for 40 seconds.
1-point game late in the fourth quarter, and we got an asshole in here microwaving shrimp, sticking up the press box.
Setting off the fire alarm because he left the fork on the plate with it too. What an asshole!
Hey, what's the next big event now that you're no longer, what is it, stuck covering just high school games in South Dakota or whatever was said about you? What's the next big event now that you're in the big city of Indianapolis?
I think Iggy says that it's like croquet and racquetball or something, like junior varsity lacrosse. No, actually, I have state basketball coming up soon. They start state playoffs for basketball in February, so I'll be rocking and roll with that. I'm assuming there'll be some NCAA tournament stuff out here that I'll get to help with, and then the Indy 500 in May. So I'll get my first foray into automobile racing, which I'm looking forward to.
What do they call that stadium now? Where do the Pacers play now? What's it called?
Boy, I don't know. It's like Great Bankers. No, it's not Bankers Life anymore. I can't remember. I've only ever known
it was a field house. I know that they kept the field house, but it was Conseco Field House, and then it was they keep just changing names of it.
I just learned it, and 4 months in, and then they changed it, and I haven't bothered to learn the new name. I've been to a Pacers game though, as a fan, first NBA game, which was a fun experience.
Nice. I keep meaning to look when the Bulls are going to be in Indianapolis and make the drive over there for one. I want to see the Bulls at some point this year, and it's going to be 4-hour drive no matter which city I decide to see them in. So I need to look at the schedule and see that. Well, Brian, hey man, thank you so much for jumping on with us and going over everything last night, giving us an inside look into what Lucas Oil was like for that exciting college football championship game. Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely, buddy. Take care.